Ready.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's OVA Town Hall. I'm Karish Maharaj, the Manager of Community Outreach and Grassroots Programming, and I'll just be guiding you through this evening's presenters. So today we're focused on what's new with our indoor youth competition and with the OVA's Coaching Eligibility Policy. Before we start, just a few housekeeping things. Just want to remind you that the information we're presenting today is very fluid, that these policies, they represent the best that we can provide to our members under this COVID environment. Like I said, it's very, very fluid season that we expect to happen. And we thank you all for coming in tonight. We are not going to talk about Return to Play Stage 3 in this town hall. We have a specific town hall next week, Monday, at the same time, where we'll address those concerns. And even more detailed information about the indoor season will be dealt with on August 17th, so 2 weeks from now. Finally, I just want to say thank you to those of you who submitted questions in advance. Those questions will be dealt with either by our presenters during their presentation, or if they're not, I'll ask them at the end. Once the presenters are done, I'll present. If you have a question, just please drop it into the chat. I'll go in, check it, add it to the list, and I'll ask the presenters at the end. So first up, LP, you can go ahead and start the PowerPoint. There we go. So first up, we're going to talk about what's new with our indoor youth competitions, and presenting today will be Carrie Campbell, or Competitions Manager. So handing over to you, Carrie.
Okay, welcome everybody. Hopefully we can answer some of your questions through our discussion here. If not, like Kara said, let us know and we can address them later. Yeah, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so I guess we'll touch on our contingency plan tryout window up first here. So as we're all aware, COVID is, obviously throwing a wrench in a lot of our plans for this September, and we want to make sure that everybody has a fair chance to create their training groups, and everybody has a chance to find their teams, whether or not their permits are going to be available or not. So OVA staff, the Indoor Volleyball Development Committee, and as well as the regional presidents have worked together to try and come up with a contingency plan for regions that aren't able to get permits. We want to also make sure that we're limiting the risk for kids that are out there and are not, getting in contact with lots of people for whatever reason, if it's not necessary. And we want to make sure that our training cohorts get established sooner. So the sooner they get established, the better we are going to be for the season. We can start training and getting back to playing ball. So the tryout window has gone through a couple of modifications already. So the first modification that we made was much earlier in the year, where we extended the re-signing period all the way to August 31st. We felt re-signing was a really great way for clubs to establish those cohorts, minimize our risk for the athletes, and really be able to get to, hit the ground running, no matter what September looks like. If we can't get into the gyms October, November, whatever, if we're able to have our teams made, we can do opportunities for grass volleyball, virtual learning, training on your own and things like that, and try to be a bit more creative rather than just getting in the gym 3 times a week. And then we're going to be introducing a period where club athletes who are currently training with a different club than they were the previous season are able to commit to a club. So This will allow clubs to extend an offer to an athlete who has been training with a new club over the summer. This athlete will have to ensure that they have made sure that they've expressed their interest in committing to that club. And we don't want clubs out there just sending offers willy-nilly. This really has to come from the athlete first. The first step has to be the athlete initiating it, saying, hello, Spikers. I want to commit to your club. I had great training over the summer. I would really love to play with you for next year. So the Spikers can is not permitted to promote Sally and just say, hey, Sally, heard you're great, come play for me. So that will be one of the modifications coming. And then we're also going to look at an application process. So this is athlete initiated, where the athlete would fill out an application, submit it to the club, and the club can go through their applications and create their teams from there. Obviously, there's going to be more information about this that's coming out very, very shortly. But this is kind of just a brief overview for the contingency plan. Now, this application process is meant to run in conjunction with a tryout, if tryouts are permitted in the area. So you can opt to accept applications, you can opt to run tryouts, or you can do a combination of the both. Whatever really works best for you in your club. But we just wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity for athletes to find a club if there are no gyms available. So some key points about the modification: that the dates for the application will keep in line with the tryout policy that was previously published in early spring. So we're not going to change those dates. This is an athlete-driven process. We want to make sure the athletes are the ones that are filling out the applications, that are expressing interest to play with a club if they have been training with them over the summer. And we would like to continue with the posting of the re-signed athletes, as well as posting information for the athletes that are looking to apply. So we are hoping that clubs will contact us, let us know what they're looking for, like if they're looking for spots on a 15U team, if they're looking for a specific position on that 15U team. So that will kind of act as a central message board, so we can kind of facilitate this process for applications a little better. So there are some documents that I believe Karish dropped into the file here that everybody can have a look at. I'm not sure if they were if it was sent out the way we thought it was today, but they will be made available and they will be posted on the website by tomorrow. So I guess consider this a little bit of a sneak peek at all the documents that are in the chat.
Carrie, they did go out. They went
perfect.
out today. I checked.
Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize. I have triple duty here working from home. Yes, great. Thank you, Alicia. So, but they're also in the chat down there, wherever they go. Karish will direct you to them. Okay, so that's the contingency plan that we have developed for this fall. Karish, can we move along? Perfect. And as we all know, we have put our January calendar out there. I know I'll just breeze through this. This is an old slide. It's just meant as a refresher. So obviously we felt January start time was the safest start for us, for our athletes, for clubs. We're worried about permits and the uncertainty for additional outbreaks come fall. So we really felt that January start time was the best overall. So we're still have a number of considerations that we had to think about. We wanted to make sure that we have 3 weeks between each age divisions. We will be playing on March break this year just because we're trying to fit 3 events in for each age group. We will also be having additional Sundays within the calendar. We do have to make sure that specific age divisions aren't playing on the same weekend just because they're too large and we don't have enough resources to cover them all. And so OC's dates will be released later in the summer. We are just going to sit and wait on that a little bit to just to see how the summer progresses, what stage we're able to get to, and just make sure we're not, you know, like Kara said, this is very fluid. It might change, and these are just kind of the best case scenarios. So we're going to try to make sure we're making the right decisions when we're releasing all this information. So stay tuned for those dates. Okay, so with that being said, we have 3 age divisions. Sorry, I need to slow down. We have 3 tournaments for each age division. So that means there is going to be structure changes to the season. So there is going to be slight changes to where you start within the division if we grow the division as the season progresses. So it's going to be the same eligibility requirements for Ontario Championships. We want a minimum of 2 events to qualify for the Ontario Championships. And for the rest, we're just going to, the 12 girls will begin in the Trillium division and then move on into their other divisions. 13U girls will begin in Premier Championship in Trillium. 13U boys will begin in Premier and Championship divisions. 14 to 17U boys and girls will begin the season with every tier that they can. So just to kind of, missing that one tournament doesn't allow us to build it out throughout the season. So we kind of have to jump in a little bit sooner than what is expected. And the first event for the 14Us will remain an all positions event. So we're going to keep that in there. And the 18U boys and girls will drop the Provincial Cup as well as the Grand Prix qualifier. And we are going to up the Grand Prix events to 12 teams. So we wanted to drop the qualifier just to be conscious of travel and making sure we're staying regionally and kind of, you know, do our part to make sure that we're putting the health and safety of our athletes first. Okay, and just another little update. So last year we had worked on a percentage chart for initial placement for underage teams. So this means if a team was playing up in a higher age division, we were able to find a competitive tier for them right off the bat, rather than putting a 16U girls premier team at the bottom of Trillium Green if this was their first event of the season. So we did review those percentages. Mark, our 16U to 18U program coordinator, is a whiz at numbers, and he was able to crunch them a little bit. And we are going to be changing the initial placement for the girls Trillium division. So we are looking at changing that percentage that was 13 to 40% to be placed in a division higher to 13 to 30%. I guess that 40% was too broad and it wasn't creating a good enough balance competitively for everybody. So another interesting thing that we looked at for this year as well was the fact that we don't have end of season rankings. We don't have an OCs finish. So when we were looking at, we looked at the fairest way to make sure that we were starting off the season where they should be. And considering we were already down one event, this kind of became a big topic of conversation. So the ranking for the season. So we're going to look at the top 2 finishes for your previous season. That will be your rank for the beginning of this season. And then we just applied a tie-breaking procedure. We know that there's going to be a lot of teams with multiple points, considering we weren't able to, you know, break it down at Ontario Championships. So any ties are going to be broken using the steps that are listed below, and we'll keep breaking those ties as they go. So we're going to go overall points average, and this is all based on obviously the previous season. A team's overall points average from the season, number of OVA events the team has participated in their age division, a team's result in the most recent event, and then working backwards to the first event of the season, and a team's preseason rank going into the 2019-20 season, and then a team seed going into the 2019 Ontario Championships as a tiebreaker, and then a coin toss. I'm sure it won't get down that far, but that's how we felt would be the best way to start January. So yeah. And we are going to be introducing some new playing balls for this year as well. This message went out, I think it was around October last year, October, November next year. It is important to note that these balls are not mandatory for training. We will be playing with these at competition, but you don't have to, your club doesn't have to purchase new balls if they don't wish to. So 11 to 12U will be the MVA Lite. The 13U to 15U will be the new VQ200W. And thank you to Karish for putting some time and effort into creating that beautiful ball for us. And then the 16U to 18Us will be using the MVA 200W. So yeah, so that's fun stuff for January to look forward to. We are also looking at just tightening up the warm-up protocol. We had a request from the officials to do so, and we have been getting a lot of questions about where the coach is allowed to stand during the warm-up. And we looked at a bunch of different rules in that, and there is the best thing we thought was having the coach stay within the 3-meter line on the opposite side and being able to toss the balls over the net to their athletes that way, and making sure that your athletes are not the athletes that are shagging, or your team staff that is shagging is not on the court. They're always facing the net. They're always aware, and they're actually lined up on the perimeter of the court, on the receiving side of the attacks. So yeah, so that's where we are at with the warm-up. And we're also going to be rolling out the purple card for every age division. This past season, we actually piloted it at the 18U level and with our senior officials. And overall, they felt it went really well. There is still some learning to do with the officials and being confident in pulling it, but definitely it was received very well, and we are very happy about that, and we'll be moving forward with the purple card for every OVA event that we will be running. Next. Okay, and again, Ontario Championships 2021. So I'm just going to reiterate again, this is perfect world situation for us. Obviously, this is what we're planning on right now, but that plan may change moving forward as the COVID situation evolves. And, you know, we do have to think of contingency plans for this as well, considering gathering sizes and what have you. But right now, this is our plan. So as of August, we are still planning to host 7 events, large-scale festival events in 2 different cities. That would be Rim Park in Waterloo and Paramount Fine Food Center in Mississauga. So we're really happy to actually move in there and kind of, you know, spread our wings a little bit and work with Paramount in Mississauga. And at this time, our tournament entry fees will be remaining unchanged for the 2020 from the 2020 rates at this time. Obviously, we are wondering what our season is going to look like, and we're planning as best as possible. And the information that we have right now is that it will be, the rates will stay the same for Ontario Championships. So February 1st is kind of a buzz date for us. That's the decision that we'll make if we have to change the look of the Ontario Championships. And this would be moving to smaller events across the province to make sure that we are abiding by government regulations regarding gathering sizes, and making sure that we are within health codes and all that kind of stuff. So if any major changes will be made, it will be made by February 1st. Okay, another change for Ontario Championships is that we are going to look at making sure that teams that are out 350 kilometers away from our playing venues have access for booking hotel accommodations. So this will be monitored with the HTG as well. So we'll be using the club's address that they use to register and calculating the distance from that venue to the club's address. So whether they're playing at Mississauga or Rim Park, we will look at that. And our hotel booking will be released later in the fall. Obviously, we just want to make sure that we're doing everything right and correct, and planning as best we can for future situations. Okay, so there are going to be a couple of changes for next year for registration. Our team is hard at work upgrading NRS, and as of September 1st, we are hoping to release the membership registration system. So we're working really hard to develop that. And something else that is really new is we are going to ask every person attending a tryout to pre-register before attending that tryout. They can register as a tryout player role. This is going to be a $0 fee. Every individual should do that. We're not going to ask clubs to register a number of people at once. We need every individual to do it so they can sign off on Rowan's Law legislation, the OVA membership, and the COVID-19 waiver. So this is obviously really important. It's something that we are regulated to do by the ministry, considering that Rowan's Law is law. We have to make sure that we are following that to a T. And we also have additional concerns, obviously, with COVID again. So we're gonna, that pre-registration is super, super important. And then the players who are selected from that tryout process will have the opportunity to upgrade their membership to what's required for the season. So it'll start off with 0, and then, yay, you made it, let's go and start the full registration process. And we're just asking that clubs just sign off on proof of registration at MRS on your first night of tryouts if you're able to hold the tryouts. And that can just simply be a printed receipt. It can be somebody flashing their phone saying, showing proof that they have completed those waivers and registered with us. So. Okay, and again, a lot of uncertainty. So due to the uncertainty regarding the start of our season, we want athletes to not have to pay the full membership until just prior to our first competitive event of the season. So we are asking them to register an MRS in one of the following categories to participate in on-court activities. So this is after they have just done their tryout player. So if you're just done a tryout, then this chart shows what membership level that we are asking, or we're requiring everybody to complete. And so the tryout player just needs to sign off on their waivers, and sign up as a tryout or recreational player for $0. For club practices, we're going to ask everybody to sign up as a recreational player or competitive player. Same with if you're competing in exhibition events or some other events that we may be running or running by your club. And then that competitive player role won't have to be paid until our actual first OVA competition. We want to make sure, obviously, that the uncertainty of this whole season, we don't want to be collecting monies that aren't necessary until they are necessary. So it saves us a bit of work on our end, and a bit of work on your end too. So, but we are asking club contacts to pay the full membership fee to create your clubs and get it all going. So, and the club form will be collected in the MRS system as well under the club profile section. So we're going to have a full town hall on this on August 14th. So that will be really helpful for all our club administrators and anybody who has touched the system to kind of understand how it works and all the great new stuff that it has. So August 14th is a good town hall to attend. Carrie?
Larry,
Yeah.
sorry, August 14th, I believe, is a Friday. Is that correct?
Is that the right one there?
Did you mean the
17th.
17th.
17. Yeah.
Thank you, LP.
No problem.
So August 17th, everybody check it out. Okay. So tournament registration fees as of right now will be increased for the 2021 season. They haven't been approved yet, and we'll be publishing them as soon as we're more certain of what the season's going to look like. There are going to be an increase. We're hoping about $40, and that's just to cover the extra precautionary measures that we will be implementing for the season. So per PPE for our hosts, looking at training for event delivery, whether that would be questionnaires, government regulations, things along that line. We just want to make sure everybody's safe, and we're keeping our province at a stage 4, stage 3 level at that time. So we would just want to make sure that we're doing our part. The following fees have been either reintroduced or changed for next season. So we do have an increase of club fees to $200. We're going to do a house league only club fee of $100, and that will be more leaning towards our grassroots programs and that. We do have a team fee of $10 per team, and there will be no OVA membership increase this year. Volleyball Canada updates, everybody. So I'm sure some of you are aware that there has been a safe sport training module that will be mandatory for any participant at nationals. And that's for anyone who has, mandatory for anyone with direct or indirect contact with athletes. It does require you to sign up to the locker and create an account. There is no cost. There's the link. I took it. It's great. It really is. I feel like it helps me as a parent, helps me even as a coworker. So definitely take it. It's worth it. Even if you're not going to nationals. Volleyball Canada will be introducing a increase of $1 for their membership. I think this is just par for the course as they've been updating, increasing their fee by $1 for the last 3 or 4 years, maybe even more than that. I can't remember. And as VC updates anything for the season, obviously we'll hand them down. They can be a little late on that, considering that many of the provinces start much later than us, but we'll see. And I think I'm done. So.
Carrie, you're doing so well. Why don't you just keep going?
Oh my God, I'm so.
That's okay. You spoke a lot. You probably should grab a sip of water or something. Great job, Carrie. And thank you for sharing all that information. So the coach eligibility policy, happy to talk to you a little bit about it today. This is actually something that was not directly affected by COVID, which is great, I guess. We wanted to go in this direction regardless, but I think it's actually going to work pretty well this year given the situation. So just a little bit of context quickly. I'm sure you're all aware of what the coach certification policy has been in the past, and we used to call it the coach certification policy because there was a certification component attached to it. And if you and I haven't had a conversation about it, I'm sure you've had a conversation about it with someone else within your club, with a coach that you know. It brought about quite a bit of frustration, or the one that we had before. It was kind of confusing, and it definitely created some tense conversations between our staff and some coaches, and created some issues. Let's just put it that way. And so we decided to look at it after, actually just before we kind of all got shut down. We were looking at, the number of coaches who met the certification policy for the 2020 OCs. And you're right, we decided that we had to do something. So, and that we had to change. And so we started talking about that with our coach committee. We talked to other provinces about it and to Volleyball Canada. And Volleyball Canada decided, after we reached out to them, that they would review their own policy. And so now our policies align, although there is going to be a little extra component to the Volleyball Canada one. But yes, now we have a new policy that we call the Coach Eligibility Policy. And it's focused on safe and responsible coaching, okay, because this is something that's very important to our organization and to all of our members, especially our athletes. It is, this policy actually is much more simple to achieve, in the sense that all of the modules are very easily accessible and they're available from anywhere you are, and they can be taken at any time, all of them. So they do not require you to attend an in-person course. This policy applies to all coach members. So that is one big difference, and we'll go through it. But it's not just for head coaches anymore. So there are some requirements for all coaches, regardless of if you are a head coach, an assistant coach, an apprentice coach, a parent coach. If you're a coach, this applies to you. And the other big difference, which was really important to us, because in the past, we would start the season with some certification requirements that we did not check until the end of the season. And so we were getting multiple emails from parents who were having some bad experiences in their club, saying, how come this coach is allowed to coach without their certification? Your policy doesn't take effect until the end of the season. That makes no sense. And yeah, that's a great point. So we thought that it was very important to have something in place that applied at the very beginning of the season before you even registered as a member. And so, so this policy will apply to all coaches, and the requirements must be met before they register as coaches. And the last difference, and that's an important difference as well, is there are no more fines. So no more money grab, no, right? We heard that a lot from coaches. No more fines. So people can no longer actually budget the cost of the fine in their team budget as to escape the requirements. So those are the differences. We will go through them right now. So through the actual policy. So it's very straightforward and very simple. All people who want to register as in either of the two roles, such as a coach role in MRS or a club technical director role, must abide by the OVA screening policy. That hasn't changed. It's always been the case for all adults involved with our youth athletes. They must also complete the Making Headway online module. This is a free module available on in the locker from the Coach Association of Canada. And also complete a Coaches Association of Canada Safe Sport Training. So Carrie, just a few minutes ago, said that Volleyball Canada will require all participants at nationals to have completed that module. That includes referees, coaches, and team managers, and so on. For us, we're only talking about coaches, okay? So coaches have to complete it. And this was an unanimous decision on our coach committee. and we had people on the committee who are representing many clubs, and this was actually unanimous on the committee that this was something that we really wanted coaches to have. Our committee members had completed that module, and just like Carrie said, thought that it was very valuable for coaches and very important that we were taking this before starting to coach in the OVA. And so everybody does that. So all coaches, assistant coaches, head coaches, these two things are free and again available online. And then there's an additional requirement for head coaches and club technical directors, and that is that they must complete the Foundations of Volleyball module, which are the Volleyball Canada modules. These are $89 to sign up for. I would say that by now, I'm pretty confident that the vast majority of our head coaches, if they were head coaches in the past, have completed the Foundations of Volleyball modules. If you're not familiar with the name, you may have completed them before they were called that way, before they were called the Volleyball Canada E modules. They're the same thing. So yeah, so that's one of the requirements. And then the other one is to complete the Making Ethical Decision online evaluation. Again, this has been a requirement for a long time, so we expect that a lot of coaches already have that. This module, this evaluation online, is either $85, but it is free if you've taken the Making Ethical Decision course. So yeah, and so those are the requirements. That's it. Now, how are we going to check that? Well, it's pretty simple, and this is again another difference between this policy and what we had in the past, and it's one that is actually engaging clubs in this process. And so, you know, we keep hearing in the past, you know, couple of years, and especially recently with our strat plan meetings and all that, and all of that stuff that we did, we keep hearing about the you know, the relationship between our OVA staff and clubs and stuff, and we want that to get better. And this is one place where working together is really going to pay off. And so we're asking that clubs verify that their coaches have completed their courses, and that you confirm that you verified that in your club information form. This is the same form that Carrie told you about a few minutes ago. That form will be available in the MRS system. And so just as you normally would indicate that all of your coaches have passed the screening forms, that you verified their police record check and all that stuff, well, you will check a box saying that you verified that they also meet the eligibility policy. Now, what we'll do is that on September 14th, early in September, we will have an online session just like this, where I will walk you through how to use the locker, how to actually go and get that information quickly so that you can verify that information by yourself, you know, using your computer and your internet connection. The all of that information about certification and those modules essentially is available publicly for anyone who has the name of a coach and their NCCP number. So I'll show you how that works on September 14th. And yeah, and so again, those requirements must be met before registering as a member. You can expect that this year, as we get started with this, like what we're going to do at the staff level is that once we're past, we'll give you a couple of months to do that. And then starting at around November, we will start going through essentially all of the coaches that are registered to make sure that they have done it. We want to do this to, you know, make sure that we help you as well. If we find out that a club didn't do it or something, then we can follow up. So we'll be, you know, pretty lenient in the first year in terms of reaching out, letting you know that, hey, this coach is missing this. Please complete it in the next couple of weeks. That type of stuff. But we're expecting that moving forward, as you know, next year, once we've had a year to practice of getting this done, you know, there will be some sanctions for coaches who are caught without, you know, without those requirements. and if they're registered as a member. So we don't have that system right now that, won't allow you to register until you have those completed. The locker and MRS don't communicate that way. Hopefully one day we can do that, but for now we're counting on you to do that with your club coaches. I was just going to say that. Any questions?
Awesome. Well, the slide says it all. Thank you, LP, and thank you, Carrie, for presenting. So I've just noted the questions that were emailed into us, as well as the questions that were asked during this presentation. So I'm just going to go down the list for you guys quickly. Should OVA have players travel for clubs closer to home to avoid traveling to multiple communities? I don't know if Carrie or Alicia wants to take that one.
Yeah, obviously, stay local. That's my recommendation, as local as you can, obviously. So it makes sense to me, especially, just keeping everybody safe, reducing your contact points, things like that. It makes sense to stay within as local as possible.
Once again, there's not a rule in place saying that has to be the case, though, and it's a choice by the clubs and the athletes and where they want to train. But once again, there's no formal rule in place by the OVA on that.
Yes.
LP, we have a question asking, does last year count as a coaching year in terms of coaching certification?
Yeah, so that's another change that will apply this year, is that in the past few years, there's been a count of you're a first year coach, a second year coach, a third year coach. This does not apply anymore for OVA. You are just a coach, and you're either eligible to coach in the OVA or you're not. So I guess one thing that I will say about that is actually in some of our conversation with our coach committee, it came up. We removed the the component of certification from the eligibility piece, but it does not mean that certification is not important to us, and it's going to be promoted in a different way. And there are still going to be places where certification is mandatory. And that is, for example, with any of the Team Ontario programs, there will be some NCCP requirements there in order to be a coach within our athlete development programs. That's just one example. But there will be other ways in which certification in NCCP is promoted. And, right now Volleyball Canada is revamping their development coach workshop to include an online component, so that you don't have to spend 2 full days in a gym and in a classroom to take the workshop. So we will keep promoting those advances and improvements to the curriculum, so that you have opportunities to take those. So so to again repeat the answer to that question. It doesn't matter how long you've been coaching. These requirements for eligibility apply to everybody, whether you've been coaching for 30 years or this is your first year coaching in the OVA.
Awesome. This one is a little bit of return to play, which I said we weren't going to deal with, but it also deals with coaching, so I will ask it. Will coaches be allowed to attend beach friendlies? Will a limit be set on coaches that attend per age group? For example, 1 coach per pair. And I'm asking it because our beach friendlies start this weekend.
No. Essentially, the way that the rules are set up for the beach friendlies, they're set up to minimize risk. As you know, as an organization, everything we do these days has to take into consideration the risk of someone getting contaminated by COVID, and not just someone, but we're not talking about just one person potentially contracting it, but multiple. As we know, it's very contagious. So the rule is that we have in place is that athletes are allowed to come with 1 spectator. And so, I mean, if you come with your coach, I guess, like, you know, that would work, but that would have to be your only spectator. And so that would mean that, I don't know, if you can be driven by someone else or by your coach, but then you need a rule of two. It's just complicated. I mean, you can probably find a situation where that works, but the bottom line is one spectator per coach, per athlete is a rule. And I'm just going to say one thing about that while I have everybody here listening, because we did some test events with our Team Ontario athletes the last couple of weeks. And last Friday we had an event, and I was at the London one, and we had 8 girls come in at 9 o'clock, and then we had 8 boys come in at 12 o'clock, and then we played some of those friendlies matches, and we told athletes that they were allowed to bring only one spectator. And so they came in with one spectator, and that one spectator sat closer to the court, but then their other spectators just sat across the street essentially, but still were watching. And there were, in some cases, 3 people sitting on chairs there. That defeats the purpose. I mean, like, you can do that. You know, you can basically accept that people, you know, that your coaches or that your friends do that your athletes do that. But what that does is that it normalizes that behavior. And I'm telling you, it starts happening more and more, we're going to have to shut down all of our events. Because once people start not listening to the rules and they start coming, and then the number that we're gathering is now more than the number that we're supposed to have, then we're operating illegally and we have to shut down our events. And who does that penalize? The athletes. So, I mean, it's like, I just think we need to take this seriously. I trust that our community is responsible enough to, you know, follow those rules and get that done for the benefit of the athletes so that the athletes can compete. But, you know, sometimes like that, okay, this was a really small event and it happened. I can't even imagine what happens if we like try to gather the maximum athletes that we can gather in one event. So yeah, it's going to be very important to follow those rules.
Awesome. Okay, this one's a generic question, so it's probably best for Alicia. It's just a question about have there been many clubs offering trainings this summer? Are we aware of what the landscape is like? Just that the members just want to know in general how active we are.
Overall, I don't know every single club, but a lot of the regional presidents that we've been working with in the IVDC committee members as well, clubs have been running programming on the beach and outdoor side of things. And some clubs are actually looking to move to some indoor training later in August. So people are active and they're following the return to play protocols and submitting all the documents to the OVA that they need to get and the insurance certificates and so forth.
Okay, awesome. I'm condensing a few questions into this one, which is around Grand Prix and it being a 12-team tournament. You know, some people are saying, you know, yay, 12 teams. Some are saying, boo, 12 teams, it should be less. But overall, what they're asking is that how fluid are we on the number of teams that we're going to have for these tournaments?
Everything's going to have to be fluid. You know, none of us have a crystal ball that's going to tell us in 7 or 8 months time from now what the COVID environment is going to be. Like, hey, may have some miracle and there's a vaccination and we're back to full 100% go. Karish, you even alluded to this, the introduction of this is best case scenario. So if everything is going the way it should be, the gathering size numbers are way up, the COVID cases are way down, yeah, we can look at a 12-team tournament, but we're having bi-weekly meetings. We're meeting with the regional council as well as the IVDC to look at so many different formats because we are going to have to be fluid and we're going to have to adapt, and that goes for everyone. In terms of what competitions are going to look like this year, I know it's difficult to plan, but believe me, we have every plan from A to Z for every scenario that you can think of, and it's like pulling our hair out because it changes from week to week. But we're trying to plan the best we can and keep you guys the best informed that you can be as well, so we can all make, you know, responsible decisions moving forward for the athletes and all of our members realistically.
Okay. The next question is a communications related question. How is the message about approaching clubs being sent to athletes? I'm guessing the person means in terms of the extended signing window and tryout window.
So right now we're really working on communicating the process to the clubs. We want to make sure that clubs understand what it's going to look like and how it's going to play out and what our expectations are. And then we'll be communicating it later this week to the general membership so they can understand the policy as well. So right now it's just going out to the clubs, and then we will be extending it to the athletes and general membership.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I think our original date to get it out to the membership for the athletes was August 14th or 15th, whatever a week Friday is. So the clubs had almost 2 weeks to kind of go over the policies and come up with their plans from a club level of what they would like to do.
Okay, there's some questions here that came in that are related to return to play. What I'll do is I'll just take those questions and add them to next week's questions around the return to play of stage 3. So we don't have you guys on.
I can give you a really, really brief update on that as well. We have board approval as of today for the return to play indoor version 2.0. So we're looking to get that posted tomorrow. So stay tuned.
Okay. This is a marketing question or / gameplay question, which is, what's the reason for the changing the volleyball using the new balls this year?
Mikasa is phasing out the NBA 200 that we've used for the last 12 years. I can't believe it's been that long already, but that's how long it's been there. Volleyball Canada also had a technical committee put together to evaluate the volleyball offerings that Mikasa has, because Mikasa and Volleyball Canada also signed a deal for a 5-year partnership. And the balls that we came to be in existence for 2020-21 onwards are also recommendations from this technical committee. So the difference between the different balls, basically the middle 13 to 15U ball, the VQ200W, is a lighter ball. It doesn't have the dimples. Obviously, it's OVA branded. And the great thing is it's also a lower price point than the competitive ball for the 16 to 18Us. It's actually $33 cheaper per ball, which is a nice savings to have for all the clubs as well as the association moving forward. But yeah, it's basically that. Mikasa is phasing out the NBA 200, and to renew our partnership deal, basically we went with the new model that was in place.
Excellent. This one's a competition calendar question. What again is the tentative weekend or time frame for OC's 2021?
So we're running 7 events in April, and those will be various events. There will be some weekdays in there as well. So we will not be running on Easter though this year. Next year.
Okay.
Yeah. So once again, perfect world without COVID issues. We'd be looking at starting the April 8th to 10th weekend. I believe that's the Thursday to Saturday for that first event in Waterloo.
Nice. Do pre-signed athletes also need to register an MRS prior to their tryouts?
If they're re-signed, they shouldn't be attending tryouts. So if you re-sign, that means you're committed to that club. Come September 1st, you can get that athlete registered as one of those roles identified as, I think it's a recreational player. So they don't pay the full competitive player membership, but they are registered in NRS and have the athlete do that themselves. So they are signing off on all those waivers.
Yeah, that's very imperative this year and moving forward realistically. You know, as per the legislation from the government with Rowan's Law, every year parents, guardians, and their athlete under the age of 18 need to sign off that they've reviewed all of the concussion protocols and documents and educational tools and resources. So we need to get away from clubs doing the bulk registrations of all the athletes and having the athletes do it ahead of time with their parents. And it actually is great because now we're getting clean data and the athletes will already be in the system. So club registrars no longer have to go into the MRS compared to NRS and enter first name, last name, email address for, 200 kids. So now it's all going to be in the system. You just search for your players and add them to your teams. But once again, August 17th, we'll be touching on that more.
Okay. Do we have a sense of how many teams might be in each tier? For example, in like 9 teams versus 18 teams in Premier, or I know that's a really tough one.
Right. As it stands right now, we're the presentation today, or what's new today, was based on us being able to run 9-on-3s. So that means we would stick with the same number of teams within this tier as of right now. Obviously, it may change depending on the number of the government regulations and the gathering sizes that we are permitted to have.
Excellent. And finally, this will be for LP, will Volleyball Canada follow the same coaching requirements for the Ontario Championships?
Yeah, so again, just a clarification based on the question. So the requirements are not for Ontario Championships. The requirements are to be eligible to coach and to be registered as a coach in the OVA. So I just want to what's the word I'm looking for? Reiterate that. There you go. Most fancy word I use today. So yeah, so that has to happen before the registration at the beginning of the season. And as for Volleyball Canada, I swear I've been like knocking on the door every week to get their policy, and they've had some delays of their own. And they had, I think just recently, maybe in the last couple of days of last week, had a last call with their domestic development committee. They were just looking at some little tweaks from their policy. So they're going to send us their final policy any day now. What I can tell you is that it looks exactly like ours, except that for nationals, it seems like they will require coaches who participate at national championships to have completed some form of NCCP training. So that will be confirmed once we get the full official policy from Volleyball Canada. And what we'll do is that as soon as we get it, we will add that information to our own policy. So it's going to be in the same document. If you see it right now, you'll see it's kind of highlighted in yellow. It says Volleyball Canada policy. That's because as soon as we get that information, we'll update the document.
All right. Well, that's it for the questions. Thank you for everyone for taking time away from your dinners and your children and your spouses or whatever you're looking at on Netflix to jump in and have this conversation with us, and for the wonderful questions too. These were great. This session will be up on YouTube within the next 2 days, and we look forward to seeing you at next week's Town Hall. Again, same time, 7 p.m. You can find invites on Facebook or on any of our social media, and definitely on the homepage of our website. And there we'll be talking about return to play for stage 3 indoor. So
if you click the next slide, we have the next topics if anyone's interested in looking at them.
Sure, LP, go ahead.
There you go.
Ooh, look at that. Fancy, fancy.
I was just going to ask when you were going to crack a joke. I was surprised. You spoke this whole time without making a joke.
Well, Bobby just said that I said spouses. And from what I've heard, some of us do have spouses. So, yeah. Bobby, I have twins. So for me, everything's dual. Don't tell my wives. Whatever. Okay, everyone. Have a good night and see you guys next week.
Thanks, Karish. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Karish. Thanks, Carrie.
Have a good week.
Thanks, everyone.